The mistress embraced her husband in court, until his pregnant wife entered through the back door. The ultrasound photo crumpled slightly in Camille Hartley's trembling fingers as she stared at the empty driveway where Logan's black Tesla used to sit. 7 months pregnant, she pressed her palm against her rounded belly and felt the baby kick, as if sensing the tension that had been suffocating their home for weeks. "Mommy's okay, little one," she whispered, though her voice cracked on the lie. The house felt cavernous without Logan's boisterous laughter echoing from his home gym, or the constant ping of business notifications from his phone. For 9 years, those sounds had been the soundtrack of their life together. The life they'd built from nothing more than a protein shake stand outside a community college and a shared dream. Camille walked through the kitchen, her bare feet silent on the cold marble floors Logan had insisted on installing last spring. "Only the best for my queen," he'd said then, spinning her around despite her protests about the expense. Now the luxury felt hollow, like a beautiful shell with nothing living inside. She paused at the granite island where stacks of legal documents waited, divorce papers that had arrived via courier 3 days ago, delivered by a man who couldn't meet her eyes when she signed for them. The thick manila envelope had felt heavier than her growing belly. Irreconcilable differences. The phrase mocked her from the top page. 9 years of building something together, and he'd reduced it to 2 clinical words that meant nothing and everything at once. Her phone buzzed against the counter. Another text from her sister Brooke in Seattle. "Still haven't heard from you." Logan's Instagram story from last night was, "I'm sorry, Cam. Call me." Camille's chest tightened. She hadn't looked at Logan's social media in weeks, couldn't bear to see whatever performance he was putting on for the world while their marriage crumbled in private. But Brooke's tone sent ice through her veins. With shaking fingers, she opened Instagram and navigated to Logan's profile. The blue verification check mark next to Logan Hartley, fitness entrepreneur, felt like salt in an open wound. She'd been the one to submit the application, to craft the bio, to help him build his brand from their cramped studio apartment. The story loaded, and Camille's world tilted. Logan stood in what looked like an upscale restaurant, his arm wrapped around a woman with platinum blonde hair and curves poured into a red dress that cost more than most people's rent. Tess Alcott, the personal trainer who'd joined their company 6 months ago with glowing references and a smile that could sell supplements to vegans. The caption read, "Sometimes life gives you exactly what you need when you need it most." New chapter Mauern Blessed Life. Camille's vision blurred. She gripped the counter so hard her knuckles went white, her breath coming in short gasps that made her ribs ache. The baby kicked again, harder this time, as if responding to her spike in heart rate. This wasn't just an affair. This was a public declaration. While she'd been home, swollen and exhausted, planning their child's nursery and managing the business emails Logan never bothered to read, he'd been parading his replacement around Denver like a trophy. The front door's lock clicked and Camille quickly closed the app, her heart hammering against her ribs. Logan walked in, gym bag slung over his shoulder, looking tan and refreshed in a way that made her stomach turn. He barely glanced at her as he headed for the stairs. "We need to talk," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Logan paused, one foot on the bottom step. "Actually, we don't. My lawyer will handle everything from here." His tone was flat, businesslike, the same voice he used with difficult vendors. "You should probably get your own attorney, soon." He started up the stairs again, and something inside Camille snapped. "Logan." The word came out sharp enough to make him freeze. "Look at me." He turned, and for a moment she saw a flicker of the man who used to bring her coffee in bed every morning, who used to trace patterns on her back when she couldn't sleep, who used to say she was his better half. Then his expression hardened, and that man disappeared entirely. "What, Camille? What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? That this is all some mistake?" He gestured vaguely at her belly. "We both know this isn't working anymore. Haven't you figured that out yet?" The cruelty in his voice made her step back as if he'd struck her. But as she watched him climb the stairs, heard his footsteps cross the bedroom floor above, heard the shower turn on like any other ordinary evening, something cold and sharp crystallized in her chest. Logan thought he'd won, thought he could discard her like outdated equipment and walk away with everything they'd built together. He had no idea what was coming. As the water ran overhead, Camille picked up her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found the name she needed. The call connected on the second ring. "Miranda? It's Camille Hartley. I need a lawyer, a very good one." And Logan was about to learn exactly how good she could be when she stopped playing nice. "What would you do if you found your cheating husband flaunting his mistress on Instagram while you're 7 months pregnant with his child. Miranda Cole's law office smelled like leather and determination. Seated across from the sharp-eyed attorney, Camille felt smaller than she had in years, her maternity dress suddenly feeling like a costume she didn't know how to wear. "Tell me everything," Miranda said, sliding a box of tissues across the mahogany desk. Her reputation in Denver's legal circles was legendary. She'd never lost a high-profile divorce case, and her retainer fees reflected that track record. Camille's voice came out steadier than she expected. "My husband is having an affair with one of our employees. He moved out 3 days ago and filed for divorce without warning me. He's posting about her on social media while I'm 7 months pregnant with his child." Miranda's expression didn't change, but she made notes on a legal pad. "How long have you been married?" 9 years. We built his business together from nothing." Camille's hand moved instinctively to her belly. "He had a protein shake cart outside Metro State College when we met. I was getting my business degree, working 3 part-time jobs. I helped him write his first business plan, find investors, register the company. Are you listed as a co-owner on any documents?" The question hit Camille like cold water. "No. Logan said it would be easier for taxes if everything was in his name. I trusted him." Miranda set down her pen. "Mrs. Hartley, I need you to understand something. In Colorado, we have equitable distribution laws, but proving your contribution to a business that's solely in your husband's name can be challenging. Do you have any documentation of your involvement?" Camille's chest tightened. I have emails, contracts I negotiated with suppliers. I handled all the social media marketing for the first 5 years. I designed the logo, the website." Her voice trailed off as the reality hit her. "But none of it has my name on it officially. What about bank accounts? Joint assets? The house is in both our names. We have joint checking and savings, but Logan handles most of the business accounts." Camille felt the walls closing in. "Am I going to lose everything?" Miranda leaned forward, her expression softening slightly. "Not if I can help it. But I need you to do something for me. I need you to go home and gather every piece of evidence you can find, every email, every receipt, every document that shows your involvement in building this business. Text messages, photos, anything that proves you were his partner, not just his wife." As Camille drove home through Denver's afternoon traffic, her mind raced. 9 years of her life, reduced to a desperate hunt for proof that she'd existed in their success story. The house felt different when she walked in. Not just empty, but hostile. Logan's absence had transformed their shared space into enemy territory. She climbed the stairs to his home office, a room she'd rarely entered because he'd always claimed it was too cluttered for her organizational skills. Now she understood why. The desk was covered in business documents she'd never seen, contracts with distributors she'd negotiated deals with over the phone, but signed only by Logan, partnership agreements for the new franchise locations, deals she'd researched and presented to him months ago, her contributions erased from the official record. Her hands shook as she opened his laptop. The password was still the same, their wedding anniversary. The betrayal of that small detail cut deeper than she expected. Logan's email inbox told the story of their marriage's disintegration in stark detail. Months of messages between him and Tess, starting professional and gradually becoming intimate. But it was an email thread from 3 weeks ago that made Camille's blood run cold. From Logan Hartley to Tess Alcott, subject, RE, moving forward. "She's getting too involved in the business side again, asking too many questions about the new Denver location. I think it's time to make some changes. Can you meet me tomorrow to discuss transition plans for your role in the company?" From Tess Alcott, Logan Hartley, subject, moving forward. "Of course, baby. I've been ready to take on more responsibility for months. When are you going to tell her about us? I'm tired of hiding. My followers keep asking when I'm going to announce my promotion to brand ambassador." From Logan Hartley to Tess Alcott, subject, RE, moving forward. "Soon. The pregnancy complicates things, but my lawyer says as long as I file first and establish grounds, I can minimize what she gets. She never contributed much to the actual business anyway, just administrative stuff anyone could do." Camille stared at the screen until the words blurred. Administrative stuff anyone could do. 9 years of 18-hour days, of building his brand while he schmoozed investors, of handling every detail he was too important to manage himself. She screenshotted every email, her fingers moving with mechanical precision. Then she opened his photo folder. The images hit her like physical blows. Logan and Tess at business conferences she'd been told were too boring for her to attend. Tess wearing the diamond necklace Logan had claimed was lost from their jewelry box. The two of them in what looked like the master bedroom of a luxury condo she'd never seen. But it was the final folder that made her stop breathing entirely. Transition plans contained detailed documents outlining Logan's strategy to push her out of the business entirely. New employee contracts that removed any informal advisory roles she'd held. Corporate restructuring that would eliminate her access to company email and social media accounts. Even a timeline for moving her out of their shared office space at the main gym location. He'd been planning to erase her from their life's work for months. Camille printed everything, her hand steady now with cold fury. As the papers churned out of the printer, she heard Logan's key in the front door. Heavy footsteps crossed the foyer below, followed by lighter ones, and a woman's laughter that made Camille's skin crawl. "She's probably napping." Logan's voice drifted up the stairs. "Pregnant women sleep like 16 hours a day." "Poor thing," Tess replied with false sympathy that dripped sarcasm. "It must be so hard being taken care of while other people do all the real work." More laughter. The sound of the refrigerator opening. Logan offering Tess wine from bottles Camille had selected for their anniversary dinner last year. Camille gathered the printed emails and photos, slipping them into a manila folder. As she reached for Logan's laptop to clear the browser history, her fingers froze over the trackpad. Why hide what she'd found? Instead, she opened a new email and began typing, from Logan Hartley to Camille Hartley. Subject, the truth. Since you'll probably read this anyway, I might as well be honest. Everything you think we built together, it was always mine. You were just along for the ride. Tess understands the business in ways you never could. Don't make this harder than it has to be. L. She scheduled it to send in 24 hours, then quietly closed the laptop and slipped out of the office. Downstairs, Logan and Tess were cuddled on the couch Camille had picked out for their first apartment together, watching a movie and sharing takeout from their favorite Thai restaurant. "Oh." Logan looked up when she appeared, his expression shifting to mild annoyance. "I thought you were asleep." Tess didn't even pretend to look embarrassed. She was younger than Camille remembered, with the kind of artificial perfection that came from expensive procedures and perfect lighting. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "Camille, right? Logan's told me so much about you." Tess's voice was honey over poison. "Congratulations on the baby, that must be so exciting." The condescension was so thick Camille could taste it. She looked between Logan and the woman who thought she'd won everything, clutching the folder of evidence against her chest like armor. "Thank you," Camille said quietly. "It really is exciting. New beginnings and all that." Logan's eyes narrowed slightly, as if sensing something different in her tone. He should be worried, Camille thought as she walked toward the stairs. They both should be, because tomorrow the real Camille Hartley was going to wake up. Camille woke before dawn, her body heavy with pregnancy but her mind razor-sharp for the first time in months. The folder of evidence lay on her nightstand like a loaded weapon, and she could hear Logan's snores drifting from the guest bedroom where he'd apparently spent the night. Coward couldn't even face sleeping in their bed. She dressed quietly in her most professional maternity outfit, a navy blazer that still fit and made her feel like the businesswoman she'd forgotten she was. By 6 a.m. she was sitting in Miranda's office again, the manila folder spread across the conference table like a battle plan. "This changes everything," Miranda said, scanning the printed emails with growing excitement. "These messages prove intentional deception and financial planning to exclude you from marital assets. The timeline alone shows months of premeditation." Camille felt a surge of something she hadn't experienced in years. Power. What do we do with it? "We build a case that shows you weren't just a supportive spouse but an active business partner whose contributions were systematically erased." Miranda pulled out a legal pad. "I need you to make a list of every client relationship you managed, every vendor you negotiated with, every business decision you influenced, names, dates, dollar amounts if you remember them." For the next 3 hours, Camille reconstructed 9 years of invisible labor. The protein supplier in Arizona she'd convinced to give them wholesale prices when they were broke. The graphic designer who'd created their logo based on her vision and direction. The social media campaigns that had grown their Instagram from 300 followers to over 2 million. "My God," Miranda muttered, reviewing the list. "You basically built this company while he took credit. He told people I was just handling the administrative side." Camille's voice carried a bitter edge. "Turns out administrative was code for everything that actually mattered." Miranda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. Mrs. Hartley, did you know your husband filed an emergency motion this morning to freeze your access to joint accounts? The blood drained from Camille's face. What does that mean? It means he's trying to cut off your access to funds before the divorce proceedings begin. It's a common tactic to force the other party into a quick settlement. Miranda's expression hardened. But he just made a critical mistake. How? Emergency motions require proof of immediate threat or fraud. By filing this, he's claiming you pose a financial risk to marital assets. But your evidence shows you've been the responsible party managing business finances for years. Miranda smiled like a shark scenting blood. We're going to bury him with his own paperwork. At noon, Camille sat in her car outside the flagship gym location, watching Logan and Tess through the floor-to-ceiling windows. They were conducting what looked like a staff meeting, Tess positioned at Logan's right hand like she already owned the place. Camille's phone buzzed with a text from her sister Brooke. Saw Logan's latest Instagram post. Tess is really rubbing it in, isn't she? How are you holding up? Against her better judgment, Camille opened Instagram. Logan had posted a photo of himself and Tess at the gym, both in matching Hartley Fitness Empire branded workout gear. The caption made her stomach turn. Excited to announce Tess Alcott as our new creative director and brand ambassador. Sometimes the best partnerships happen when you least expect them. Big changes coming for HFE. Power couple. New leadership. Evolution. The comments were brutal. Hundreds of followers who'd watched Logan and Camille build the brand together were asking pointed questions. What happened to Camille? She's been the face of HFE for years. Isn't Camille pregnant? This seems like weird timing. Logan, this doesn't look good, man. Where's your wife? But there were others. Newer followers who seemed to know nothing about Camille's existence. You two are goals. Finally, someone who actually looks like they belong in fitness. Tess is so much better for the brand. Young, hot, motivated. Camille screenshotted everything, adding it to her growing file of evidence. Then she did something that surprised even herself. She got out of the car and walked into the gym. The familiar smell of rubber mats and protein powder hit her immediately. This had been her second home for 9 years, the place where she'd spent countless hours building systems, training staff, and creating the culture that made Hartley Fitness Empire more than just another gym chain. Several employees looked up as she entered, their expressions ranging from uncomfortable to openly sympathetic. Jessica, the front desk manager Camille had hired and trained, looked like she might cry. Mrs. Hartley, I didn't know you were coming in today. Just picking up some things from my office, Camille said quietly, though she could see Logan and Tess had noticed her through the glass walls of the conference room. Logan's face went white. Tess just looked annoyed. Camille made her way to the small office tucked behind the main desk, officially Logan's overflow space, but practically her command center for running the day-to-day operations he couldn't be bothered with. She began gathering the personal items she'd accumulated over the years. A framed photo of her and Logan at their first franchise opening, her favorite coffee mug, the plants she'd brought in to make the sterile space feel more welcoming. Camille. Logan's voice behind her was tight with barely controlled anger. You can't just show up here without notice. She turned slowly, taking in his flushed face and aggressive posture. Tess stood beside him, arms crossed, looking like she owned the place. Can't I? Camille's voice was calm, almost pleasant. I seem to remember helping design the employee handbook. I don't recall a policy about pregnant women needing advance notice to collect their belongings. This is a place of business, Tess interjected, her tone sharp with authority she hadn't earned. We're in the middle of important restructuring meetings. Camille looked at Tess for a long moment, taking in the expensive highlights, the designer workout clothes, the smugness radiating from every pore. This woman thought she'd won, thought she'd stepped into a life that had been gift-wrapped and handed to her. Restructuring, Camille repeated slowly. How interesting. I'd love to hear about these big changes. Logan's jaw tightened. That's not your concern anymore, isn't it? Camille picked up the last of her items, a binder full of vendor contacts and supplier agreements she'd maintained for years. I mean, considering I helped build this place from a protein cart, I'm naturally curious about its future. Tess stepped forward, her fake friendly mask slipping. Look, I get that this is hard for you, but Logan and I are trying to move the company forward. We can't do that if you keep living in the past. The audacity was breathtaking. Camille felt her baby kick as if even her unborn child was offended by Tess's presumption. Living in the past, Camille repeated, her voice still maddeningly calm. Is that what we're calling 9 years of building this empire? The past? Camille, enough. Logan grabbed her arm and she looked down at his hand with such cold fury that he immediately let go. You need to leave. Now. Several employees had gathered in the main area, pretending to work while obviously listening to the confrontation. Camille could see phones being discreetly positioned. This was going to be all over social media within the hour. Of course, Camille said, shouldering her bag. I wouldn't want to interfere with important business. She walked toward the exit, then paused at the front desk, where Jessica was standing with wide, worried eyes. Jessica, Camille said loud enough for everyone to hear, make sure you keep copies of all the vendor contracts and supplier agreements. You know, the ones I spent 5 years negotiating and maintaining. I'm sure the new creative director will want to review them when she's settling in. Jessica nodded quickly, glancing nervously between Camille and Logan. As Camille reached the door, she turned back one final time. Logan and Tess stood together in the center of the gym floor, surrounded by equipment Camille had researched and purchased, in a space she'd helped design, managing employees she'd hired and trained. Good luck with the restructuring, she called out sweetly. I'm sure it will be very illuminating. The door closed behind her with a soft chime, and Camille walked to her car with steady steps. Only when she was safely inside did she allow herself to smile, because tomorrow, she was going to show them exactly what living in the past could accomplish. The call came at 7 in the morning, jarring Camille from the first decent sleep she'd had in weeks. She recognized the number, David Martinez, their biggest protein supplier and one of the first vendors she'd built a relationship with when Hartley Fitness was still operating out of Logan's garage. Camille, thank God you answered. David's voice was tight with concern. I just got the strangest call from your husband. He's trying to renegotiate our contract terms and claiming you're no longer authorized to make decisions for the company. Camille sat up in bed, her mind instantly sharp. What kind of changes? He wants to cut our wholesale pricing by 30% and switch to a month-to-month agreement instead of our annual contract. When I told him that wasn't possible given the terms you and I negotiated, he said I'd been dealing with the wrong person all along. David paused. Camille, what the hell is going on? For 9 years, David had been more than a supplier. He'd been a mentor who'd taught her the protein business from the ground up, a friend who'd extended payment terms when cash flow was tight, and a partner who'd grown his own business alongside theirs. Logan and I are getting divorced, she said simply. He's trying to erase my involvement in the company. The silence stretched long enough that Camille wondered if the call had dropped. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, David finally said. You've been my primary contact for 8 years. You know our products better than most of my own sales team. Logan calls maybe twice a year, and only when he wants to complain about shipping costs. An idea began forming in Camille's mind. Dangerous, bold, and potentially devastating for Logan's carefully constructed narrative. David, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. How many of our vendor relationships am I the primary contact for? All of them, as far as I know. Equipment suppliers, supplement manufacturers, the uniform company, even the cleaning service. You've been the face of Hartley Fitness on the vendor side since day one. Camille's pulse quickened. Would you be willing to put that in writing for legal purposes? Absolutely. And Camille, you should know, Logan's not the only one making calls. That blonde woman, Tess something, contacted me yesterday asking for influencer pricing on a personal order. When I told her we don't do influencer deals, she got nasty. Said I was going to regret not working with the new power behind the brand. The audacity was staggering, but Camille filed it away as another piece of evidence. Thank you, David, for everything. Hey, loyalty goes both ways. You've always treated our partnership with respect. That means something. After hanging up, Camille spent the morning making similar calls to every vendor and supplier in her contact list. The story was consistent across the board. Logan had been reaching out, trying to renegotiate terms and claiming sole authority over business decisions, while simultaneously suggesting that Camille had been operating without proper authorization for years. But the vendors weren't buying it. Maria Santos from Elite Equipment had laughed out loud when Logan suggested Camille had been overstepping her bounds in their partnership negotiations. That woman saved us from bankruptcy when the pandemic hit, Maria told Camille. She restructured our payment plan, helped us pivot our product line, and personally vouched for us with 3 other gym chains. Logan who, by noon, Camille had a list of 12 vendors willing to provide sworn statements about her integral role in Hartley Fitness operations. But it was the call from Jessica at the gym that made her day. Mrs. Hartley, I'm so sorry to bother you, but I didn't know who else to call. Jessica's voice was hushed like she was hiding in a closet. Something weird is happening here. What do you mean? Mr. Hartley and Tess are going through all the filing cabinets, pulling out contracts and vendor agreements. They keep asking me where you kept certain documents. But when I tell them, they act like I'm lying. Jessica paused. And Mrs. Hartley? Tess fired Stephanie this morning. Camille's blood chilled. Stephanie had been their bookkeeper for 6 years. A single mother who'd become practically family. On what grounds? She said Stephanie was too loyal to the previous management structure and couldn't be trusted during the transition. But Mrs. Hartley, Stephanie told me she caught Tess trying to access financial records she shouldn't have clearance for. The pieces clicked together with devastating clarity. Logan and Tess weren't just trying to erase Camille's contributions. They were actively trying to hide evidence of her involvement while positioning themselves as the sole architects of the company's success. Jessica, I need you to do something for me, but only if you feel safe doing it. Anything, Mrs. Hartley. Half the staff is talking about quitting. Everyone knows what's happening isn't right. If you can safely document any conversations where Logan or Tess talk about changing records or removing evidence of my involvement, it would be helpful. But Jessica, and I cannot stress this enough, do not put your job at risk. I won't ask you to sacrifice your livelihood for this. Mrs. Hartley, with all due respect, if they're willing to fire Stephanie for doing her job, none of our jobs are safe anyway. That afternoon, Camille met Miranda at a coffee shop near the courthouse, her folder of evidence now thick enough to require a briefcase. Miranda reviewed the vendor statements with growing amazement. This is unprecedented, Miranda said, flipping through sworn affidavits from suppliers detailing Camille's role in contract negotiations, payment restructuring, and business development. I've never seen a case where the supposedly uninvolved spouse had this level of documented business partnership. What does it mean for the divorce? It means your husband is about to get a very expensive education in Colorado's definition of marital property. Miranda's smile was predatory. These statements don't just prove your contribution. They establish you as an essential business partner whose work directly generated the company's value. Camille felt her baby kick as if celebrating the small victory. Miranda, there's something else. I think Logan and Tess are trying to alter or destroy records of my involvement. Miranda's expression sharpened. That would be destruction of evidence in a divorce proceeding. It's not just unethical, it's potentially criminal. She pulled out her phone. I'm filing an emergency motion for document preservation. If they're stupid enough to be tampering with records, we're going to catch them in the act. As they talked, Camille's phone buzzed with notifications. Someone had tagged her in an Instagram post, and the preview made her stomach drop. Tess had posted a photo of herself in Logan's office sitting behind his desk in a pose clearly meant to communicate ownership. The caption read, "Ready to take HFE to the next level. Sometimes you need fresh vision to unlock a company's true potential. Excited to implement the changes Logan and I have been planning. Their new leadership, here, fresh start, here, girl boss." But it was the comments that made Camille's hands shake with fury. Tess was actively responding to questions about Camille's whereabouts, painting a picture of an uninvolved wife who'd been holding the company back. Where's Camille? She used to be all over the HFE social media. Tess's reply, Logan and I felt it was time for more professional representation. The business has outgrown its original structure. Another comment. This is so sudden. What happened? Tess's reply, growth requires difficult decisions sometimes. Logan's been wanting to modernize the brand for years. Camille screenshot every exchange, her rage crystallizing into something cold and surgical. Tess wasn't just stealing her life. She was rewriting history, erasing 9 years of blood, sweat, and sacrifice with carefully crafted social media spin. Miranda, Camille said quietly, her voice carrying a steel that made the lawyer look up sharply. I want to destroy them. Miranda studied her client's face, the set jaw, the steady hands, the complete absence of tears or pleading. This wasn't a broken woman begging for fairness anymore. This was a predator who'd finally decided to hunt. Mrs. Hartley, Miranda said slowly, I think it's time we discussed our strategy for the preliminary hearing. Because based on what you've gathered, we're not just going to win this case. She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. We're going to make legal history. And Logan was about to learn that the woman he'd underestimated for 9 years had been taking notes the entire time. The emergency preservation order hit Logan's lawyer's office at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday, like a legal thunderbolt from a clear sky. By 3:15, Logan was calling Camille's phone with the desperation of a drowning man. She let it go to voicemail. Then she listened to his message on speaker while Miranda took notes. Camille, what the hell do you think you're doing? Court orders, document preservation. This is insane. Call me back immediately so we can handle this like adults. Miranda snorted. Like adults. That's rich. Coming from someone who moved his girlfriend into the marital home. He did what? Camille's voice went dangerously quiet. Oh, you didn't know? Miranda consulted her notes. Our private investigator documented Tess entering your house with luggage yesterday evening. Apparently she's been telling people on social media that she's finally moving into her dream home. The betrayal hit Camille like a physical blow. Her home, the house she'd decorated room by room where she'd planned to raise their child, where she'd built their life, was now Tess's Instagram backdrop. Show me. Miranda turned her laptop around. Tess's latest Instagram story was a tour of Camille's living room captioned with, Home Sweet Home. Sometimes the universe just aligns everything perfectly. Blessed. New chapter year dreams come true. The comments were a mixture of congratulations and barely veiled confusion from followers who remembered Camille. Wait, isn't this Logan's wife's house? Where is she? Girl, this happened fast. When did you guys move in together? Tess, people are asking questions. Maybe address the elephant in the room? But Tess's responses were masterfully crafted deflections. Sometimes life moves faster than social media can keep up. Logan and I are just focused on our future. Change is hard for some people to accept, but we're living our truth. Haters gonna hate, we know what's real. Camille stared at the screen, watching a stranger pose in her kitchen, use her coffee maker, sit on her couch. The violation was so complete, so deliberate, that it took her breath away. Miranda, I want them out of my house, today. Unfortunately, it's still the marital home. Logan has every legal right to be there, and he can have guests. Miranda's expression softened. But Camille, this actually works in our favor. She's essentially documenting her affair and the timeline of when she moved in. Every post is evidence of their relationship and how quickly she replaced you. Camille's phone rang again. This time it was Jessica from the gym, her voice shaky with panic. Mrs. Hartley, you need to know what just happened. 2 men in suits showed up with some kind of court order. They're taking pictures of everything and telling Mr. Hartley and Tess they can't touch any documents or computers. Through the phone, Camille could hear Logan's voice in the background, raised and angry. This is harassment. My wife is trying to sabotage my business out of spite. What did Tess do? Camille asked. She's crying, like full-on sobbing, saying this is all a misunderstanding and she never meant to hurt anyone. Jessica lowered her voice. But Mrs. Hartley, before the men got here, I saw her throwing papers in the dumpster behind the building. Miranda grabbed the phone. Jessica, this is Camille's attorney. Did you see what kind of papers? Contracts, I think. And some kind of folder with financial documents. I was going to take my break and maybe accidentally walk by the dumpster. Do it. And take pictures of everything before you touch anything. This could be exactly what we need. 20 minutes later, Jessica's text messages started arriving. Photos of crumpled contracts, financial reports, and, most damning of all, a printed email thread between Logan and Tess discussing their plan to clean house of any documents that showed Camille's involvement in business decisions. The evidence was devastating. Not only had they been planning to erase Camille's contributions, but they'd been stupid enough to document their intentions in writing, then panic and try to destroy evidence after receiving the court order. They just committed obstruction of justice, Miranda said, reviewing the photos with barely contained glee. In a divorce proceeding, this case just went from difficult to impossible for them to win. But the day's revelations weren't finished. At 6 p.m., Camille's doorbell rang. She opened it to find Stephanie, the bookkeeper Tess had fired, standing on her porch with a box of documents and the expression of someone who'd had enough. Mrs. Hartley, I know I probably shouldn't be here, but I couldn't let this stand. Stephanie held up the box. Before they fired me, I made copies of everything I thought you might need. Financial records, contracts, correspondence. Everything that proves you were running the business side of that company. Camille invited her in, and they spread the documents across her dining room table. The paper trail was devastating. Years of emails where Logan deferred business decisions to Camille. Contracts where vendors specifically requested to work with her instead of him. Financial reports showing that every major profit spike corresponded with initiatives Camille had spearheaded. Stephanie, why are you doing this? You could get in trouble. The older woman's jaw set with determination. Mrs. Hartley, I've been keeping books for 20 years. I know the difference between an involved business partner and a spouse who just signs papers. You built that company. Logan took credit, but you did the work. She pointed to a financial report. Look at this. When you were on bed rest with your pregnancy complications 3 years ago, the company's efficiency dropped by 40%. When you came back, everything improved immediately. I remember that. Logan said it was just coincidence. It wasn't coincidence. It was proof that you were the engine keeping everything running. Stephanie's voice carried years of suppressed frustration. And now that girl thinks she can just step into your shoes? She doesn't know the first thing about business. She fired me because I wouldn't give her access to accounts she had no right to see. As they organized the documents, Camille's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown Denver number. Mrs. Hartley? This is Detective Rivera with Denver PD. We've received a complaint about harassment and potential theft of business documents. Could you come down to the station to answer some questions? Camille's heart stopped. Am I under arrest? No, ma'am. But your husband has filed a complaint claiming you've been illegally accessing business computers and stealing proprietary information. We just need to hear your side. Miranda, who'd been listening, grabbed the phone. Detective Rivera, this is Miranda Cole, Mrs. Hartley's attorney. We'll be happy to come in, but I should inform you that we have evidence of document destruction and obstruction of justice that we'll be filing with the court tomorrow morning. The silence on the other end stretched long enough to be telling. I see. Well, perhaps we should schedule this interview for tomorrow afternoon, after you've had a chance to file your motions with the court. After hanging up, Miranda turned to Camille with something approaching awe. Do you realize what just happened? Logan is so desperate to control the narrative that he's trying to have you arrested for gathering evidence of your own business contributions. Will it work? Not when we show up with documented proof that he and his girlfriend have been destroying evidence and making false claims about document ownership. Miranda's smile was sharp enough to cut diamond. Camille, your husband just made the biggest mistake of his life. As if summoned by their conversation, Camille's phone buzzed with a text from Logan. This has gone too far. Meet me tomorrow at the house. We need to talk before this gets any worse. Camille showed the message to Miranda, who laughed out loud. Oh, it's going to get much worse, Miranda said. But not for us. Because tomorrow Logan was going to learn that the woman he'd been trying to erase had been building an unshakable foundation all along. Camille arrived at her own house feeling like a stranger visiting a crime scene. Logan's Tesla sat in the driveway next to a white BMW she didn't recognize. Probably Tessa's latest acquisition, funded by money from the business Camille had helped build. Miranda sat beside her in the passenger seat, briefcase full of evidence on her lap. Remember, we're recording everything. Let him talk. Let him dig his own grave. The front door opened before Camille could knock. Logan stood there looking haggard, his usually perfect hair disheveled and his eyes bloodshot. Behind him she could see Tess perched on the edge of the sofa, wearing one of Camille's designer pregnancy robes like it belonged to her. Thank you for coming, Logan said, his voice artificially calm. We need to settle this before it gets completely out of hand. Camille stepped inside her own home, her 8-month pregnant belly leading the way. The space felt contaminated, Tess's belongings scattered across surfaces, her makeup cluttering the bathroom counter visible through the open door, her presence infecting every corner. Settle what exactly? Camille asked, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. This ridiculous legal circus you've created. Logan gestured helplessly. Court orders, document preservation, private investigators. Camille, we were married for 9 years. We can work this out like civilized people. Tess stood up from the sofa, the pregnancy robe falling open to reveal a strategically tiny outfit underneath. Logan, maybe I should give you two some privacy too. Sit down, Camille said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. You're part of this conversation. You've been living in my house, sleeping in my bed, and posting about it on social media. The least you can do is face me while we discuss it. Tess's mouth fell open slightly. This wasn't the broken, weeping wife she'd expected to encounter. Logan stepped between them. Camille, you're upset and I understand that, but… Upset? Camille laughed, a sound devoid of humor. Logan, I'm not upset. I'm done. She moved to the mantelpiece where their wedding photo still sat, probably because Tess hadn't figured out how to replace it yet. Next to it was a new photo. Logan and Tess at some fitness expo, both grinning at the camera like they'd won the lottery. 9 years, Camille said, picking up their wedding photo. 9 years I spent building your dream while you told everyone I was just along for the ride. That's not… David Martinez called me yesterday. Camille continued, setting the frame down with deliberate care. You know, our protein supplier? The one who's been working with me for 8 years? He wanted to know why you were trying to cut his pricing and claiming I never had authority to negotiate contracts. Logan's face went pale. I was just trying to streamline operations. Maria Santos from Elite Equipment had an interesting conversation with me, too. Apparently you told her I'd been overstepping my bounds for years. Camille turned to face him fully. The woman whose company I literally saved during the pandemic thinks that's hilarious. Tess shifted uncomfortably on the sofa. Look, I know this is hard for you, but Logan and I are trying to take the business in a new direction. What business? Camille's voice was deadly quiet. The business I helped him start with a protein cart? The business I managed while he played golf with investors? The business whose vendor relationships I built and maintained for 8 years? You're being dramatic, Tess said, but her voice lacked conviction. Camille reached into her purse and pulled out a thick folder. Am I? Because I have sworn affidavits from 12 vendors stating that I was their primary contact and business partner. I have financial records showing that every major profit increase corresponded with initiatives I developed. I have emails where Logan himself admits the company would have failed without me. Logan's lawyer instincts finally kicked in. Camille, anything you think you have is just, I have the patents, Logan. The words dropped into the room like a bomb. Logan's face went from pale to gray. What patents? Tess asked, looking between them. Camille smiled for the first time since entering the house. The 3 supplement formulations that make up 60% of Hartley Fitness Empire's revenue. The ones Logan was too busy to file properly, so I handled the paperwork. The ones registered under my name as the inventor. Logan sank into the nearest chair. That's not possible. Patent numbers 10,234-567, 10,298-432, and 10,041-89. Camille recited from memory. Filed in my name, under my social security number with my signature on every document. Would you like to see the copies? The silence in the room was deafening. Tess looked like she was watching her dream life crumble in real time. You can't use those against me, Logan said desperately. We were married. Anything created during the marriage is community property. Actually, Miranda spoke for the first time, her voice professionally pleasant. Intellectual property created by one spouse using their individual expertise and knowledge belongs to that spouse regardless of marital status, especially when that spouse can prove they were the driving force behind the creation. Tess's voice came out as a whisper. What does that mean? It means, Camille said, that the 3 products generating most of your new boyfriend's income legally belong to me, and I can revoke his license to use them at any time. Logan shot to his feet. You wouldn't dare. You'd destroy the company. The company I built? The company you've been telling everyone I had nothing to do with? Camille's voice rose for the first time. The company you moved your girlfriend into my house to celebrate taking over? Camille, please. I'm not finished. She pulled out her phone and opened Instagram. Let's talk about this charming post from yesterday. She held up the screen showing Tess's house tour. My kitchen, my furniture, my home, with the caption, Home Sweet Home. Sometimes the universe just aligns everything perfectly. Tess had gone completely white. Or this one, Camille continued, scrolling through Tess's feed. You sitting at Logan's desk, which, by the way, I picked out and paid for, announcing your role as creative director, while telling followers that the business had outgrown its original structure. I was just trying to be positive about the transition. You were rewriting history, Camille snapped, erasing 9 years of my life so you could play dress-up in my success. Logan stepped forward, desperation clear in his voice. Camille, we can work this out. We can find a way to what? To let you keep pretending you built this empire alone while your girlfriend lives in my house and spends money I helped earn? Camille laughed again, bitter and sharp. Logan, you filed for divorce. You moved out. You brought her here. You tried to have me arrested for gathering evidence of my own business contributions. What exactly do you think we're going to work out? The baby, Logan said, playing his last card. Think about the baby. Our child deserves to have parents who can get along. Camille's hand moved to her belly, and for a moment the room held its breath. You're right, she said quietly. Our child deserves better. They deserve a mother who won't let anyone erase her accomplishments. They deserve to know that when someone tries to steal your life's work, you fight back with everything you have. She looked at Tess, who was clutching Logan's arm like a lifeline. They deserve to know that actions have consequences. Camille turned toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Logan? You might want to check your business bank accounts. 12 vendors just switched to payment terms that require pre-approval from the patent holder for any orders using my formulations. Logan's face went ashen. You can't do that. I just did. As Camille walked toward the door, Tess finally found her voice. This is insane. You can't destroy a whole business because your marriage didn't work out. Camille stopped, her hand on the doorknob. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just taking back what was always mine. And tomorrow she was going to show them what real power looked like. The news hit the fitness industry like a seismic shock at 6 a.m. when Denver Business Journal published their exclusive interview with Camille Hartley. The headline read, "The woman behind the empire. Pregnant wife reveals she owns patents to Hartley Fitness's top products." Camille sat in Miranda's office, watching the story spread across social media like wildfire. Her phone had been ringing nonstop since the article went live, but she'd turned off notifications and was savoring the silence for the first time in months. The reporter did excellent work, Miranda said, scrolling through the online comments, presenting the patent documents alongside Logan's own emails claiming credit for the formulations. Devastating. The article had been Camille's idea, a surgical strike designed to control the narrative before Logan and Tess could spin their version of events. She'd provided documented proof of her role in developing the supplement formulations, complete with her original research notes, patent applications, and Logan's own written acknowledgments of her work. But it was the accompanying photo that truly drove the point home. Camille in her home office, surrounded by business documents and patent certificates, her pregnant silhouette a powerful reminder of what Logan had thrown away. The comment section is brutal, Miranda continued. Logan Hartley is a fraud. How do you steal credit from your pregnant wife? Camille built this empire while he played businessman. Your public image rehabilitation is complete. Camille's laptop chimed with a Google alert. Logan had posted a statement on the Hartley Fitness Instagram account. Recent media reports contain significant inaccuracies and misrepresentations. Legal counsel has advised against detailed responses, but HFE remains committed to our customers and will continue operations as normal. The comments on his post were even more savage than the news article. Inaccuracies? She has patent documents, Logan. That's not inaccurate. That's legal proof. Your wife built your empire and you cheated on her while pregnant. Disgusting. Team Camille all the way. You're done, dude. Canceling my gym membership today, supporting businesses that treat women like this. Camille's phone buzzed with a call from David Martinez. She answered on speaker. Camille, I just read the article. Holy hell, I had no idea you actually owned the patents. His voice carried a mixture of awe and vindication. Logan called me an hour ago screaming about coordinated attacks and threatening to sue me for breach of contract. What did you tell him? I told him to have his lawyer call my lawyer, and that any future orders would require written authorization from the patent holder. David chuckled. He hung up on me. But Camille, you should know. I've gotten calls from 3 other suppliers this morning. Word is spreading fast in our industry. Logan's reputation is finished. After hanging up, Miranda showed Camille her tablet. Look at this. Tess's Instagram account had gone into full damage control mode. She'd posted a series of stories attempting to distance herself from the controversy, getting a lot of questions about recent news articles. I want everyone to know I have nothing but respect for Camille and wish her the best during this difficult time. My role at HFE has always been focused on fitness content and brand partnerships. I'm not involved in business operations or legal matters. Sometimes situations are more complicated than they appear in the media. I'm staying focused on my own brand and career goals. But the comments on her posts told a different story. Her follower count was dropping by the hundreds and the responses were merciless. Girl, you moved into a pregnant woman's house and bragged about it. There's no spinning that. Respect for Camille. You literally called yourself the new face of her company. You destroyed a family and a 9-year marriage. Own it. Hope that stolen life was worth losing your credibility. Camille felt her baby kick, as if celebrating the poetic justice of watching Tessa's carefully crafted image crumble in real time. Miranda, what's our next move? We wait for Logan to make his next mistake, and based on his pattern of behavior, we won't wait long. As if summoned by their conversation, Camille's phone rang. Logan's name flashed on the screen, but this time she answered. Logan. Camille, you've lost your mind. His voice was tight with panic and barely controlled rage. That article? Going to the press? You've destroyed everything we built together. I built, Logan, I built it. You just took credit. That's not... Look, we need to meet. Today. This has spiraled completely out of control. The only place I'm meeting you is in court. Camille, please, I'm begging you. The gym is hemorrhaging members. Vendors are cutting us off. The franchise investors are panicking. You're going to kill the company. For a moment, Camille almost felt sorry for him. Almost. The company that you told everyone I had nothing to do with? The company you were restructuring to erase my contributions? That company? I never said you had nothing to do with it. Logan, I have recordings of you telling investors that I was just administrative support. I have emails where you describe my role as helping with paperwork. I have your own words proving you've been lying about my contributions for years. The silence stretched long enough that Camille wondered if he'd hung up. What do you want? Logan's voice came out defeated. Just tell me what you want to make this stop. I want what I've always deserved. Recognition, compensation, and my life back. Fine. I'll give you half of everything. The house, the business, whatever you want. Just call off the media campaign. Half? Camille laughed, but there was no humor in it. Logan, I own the patents to your 3 best-selling products. I have documentation proving I was the primary business contact for every major vendor relationship. I have financial records showing that my initiatives generated most of your profit growth. Camille, I don't want half of what I built. I want control of it. The line went dead. Camille looked at Miranda, who was grinning like a shark that had just spotted blood in the water. That recording is going to be very useful in court, Miranda said. Logan just admitted on tape that he's been misrepresenting your contributions and offered to settle for 50% of assets he claims you don't deserve. Before Camille could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Jessica at the gym. Mrs. Hartley, you need to see this. Tess just had a complete meltdown in front of staff and customers. Security footage attached. The video file was devastating. Tess, clearly in full panic mode, screaming at employees about lies and sabotage, while customers filmed her breakdown with their phones. In the background, Logan could be seen trying to calm her down, but she shoved him away and stormed out of the building. Well, Miranda said, watching the video for the 3rd time, I think it's safe to say their power couple image is officially dead. Camille's laptop chimed with another notification. The Denver Business Journal had posted a follow-up article. Hartley Fitness Empire in freefall as customers cancel memberships and vendors cut ties. The article detailed the mass exodus of gym members, the suspension of franchise expansion plans, and the growing legal challenges facing the company. It quoted several industry experts predicting that Hartley Fitness Empire would be forced into bankruptcy within months, unless dramatic changes were made. But it was the final paragraph that made Camille smile. Sources close to the situation suggest that Camille Hartley may be positioning herself to assume control of the company she helped build, potentially saving it from the chaos created by her estranged husband's poor decision-making. Industry insiders note that her deep relationships with vendors and thorough understanding of business operations make her the logical choice to lead the company forward. Miranda, Camille said quietly, I think it's time to make an offer Logan can't refuse. Because tomorrow she wasn't just going to win the war, she was going to rule the empire. The emergency board meeting was called for 2 p.m. on a Friday, in the sterile conference room of Logan's corporate lawyer's office. Camille arrived early, her pregnancy now so advanced that she moved with the deliberate grace of a woman who knew her power didn't depend on speed. It depended on being absolutely, devastatingly right. Miranda wheeled in a cart stacked with legal boxes. Are you ready for this? I've been ready for 9 years. Logan entered with his legal team, 3 expensive suits who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Behind them came Tess, dressed conservatively for the first time since Camille had known her, her usual confidence replaced by the hunted look of someone whose world was collapsing in real time. The lead franchise investor, Robert Chen, no relation to any Dr. Chen, sat at the head of the table, his expression grim. Beside him were representatives from the 3 largest franchise locations and the company's primary lender. Let's get straight to business, Chen said. We're here because Hartley Fitness Empire is facing an existential crisis. Membership cancellations are up 300% this week. Vendor relationships are severed. Our stock value has dropped 65% since Monday. Logan's lawyer, a sharp-faced woman named Patricia Winters, spoke first. My client believes this crisis has been manufactured by his estranged wife as leverage in their divorce proceedings. The timing is suspicious and manufactured, Miranda interrupted, standing to address the room. Mr. Chen, with your permission, I'd like to present evidence that will clarify exactly who manufactured what. She opened the first box and began distributing bound documents to everyone at the table. Patent certifications for the 3 supplement formulations that generate 60% of Hartley Fitness Empire's revenue, all filed in the name of Camille Hartley. Logan's face went pale, but his lawyer pressed on. Those patents were developed during the marriage, making them community property. Actually, Miranda continued, pulling out a second set of documents, these emails from Mr. Hartley to various investors explicitly state that he developed these formulations independently, without any contribution from his wife. He can't claim both that she had no involvement and that her work belongs to him. She distributed more papers. Sworn affidavits from 12 major vendors stating that Mrs. Hartley was their primary business contact and negotiated all major contracts. Financial analysis showing that every significant profit increase corresponded with initiatives she developed. Camille watched the faces around the table as the evidence mounted. The franchise investors were looking at Logan with growing horror, realizing they'd invested millions in a company built on a lie. Furthermore, Miranda continued, we have documented evidence that Mr. Hartley and Ms. Alcott attempted to destroy records and alter financial documents after receiving court-ordered preservation notices. She played the audio recording of Logan's desperate phone call from the day before, his voice filling the room. The gym is hemorrhaging members. Vendors are cutting us off. The franchise investors are panicking. You're going to kill the company. I'll give you half of everything. The house, the business, whatever you want. The silence that followed was deafening. Chen leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. Mr. Hartley, is it true that you've been misrepresenting your wife's role in building this company? Logan's voice came out strangled. The situation is more complicated than these documents suggest. It's a simple question. Chen cut him off. Did your wife play a significant role in developing the business operations, vendor relationships, and product formulations that form the foundation of this company? Logan looked around the table, seeing nothing but hostile faces. Even Tess had shrunk back in her chair, clearly realizing that her association with him was now toxic. Yes, he finally whispered. And did you systematically exclude her from official recognition and decision-making processes while claiming sole credit for her contributions? Another pause. Another defeated, yes. Chen stood up. Then we have a fiduciary duty to our investors to consider new leadership for this company. Patricia Winters shot to her feet. You can't just replace the CEO based on marital disputes. We can replace a CEO who has committed fraud, Chen said coldly. Who has built a company on misrepresented credentials and stolen intellectual property, who has created a public relations disaster that threatens every investment we've made. He turned to Camille. Mrs. Hartley, the board would like to formally offer you the position of Chief Executive Officer of Hartley Fitness Empire, with full authority to restructure operations and rebuild vendor relationships. The offer hung in the air like a golden sword waiting to fall. Logan's face had gone ashen, while Tess looked like she might be sick. What about Logan? Camille asked quietly. Mr. Hartley will retain a minority stake in the company as founder, but all operational control will transfer to you. Ms. Alcott's employment will be terminated immediately with cause. Tess finally found her voice. You can't fire me. I have a contract. A contract signed by someone who didn't have the authority to hire you, Chen replied. Since Mrs. Hartley was the actual business manager, any employment agreements made without her approval are invalid. Camille stood slowly, her hand resting on her belly. She looked around the table at the faces of investors who had finally understood what Logan had stolen from her, what she had built while he took credit. I accept, she said simply. The room erupted. Logan's lawyer began objecting frantically, but Chen cut her off. The motion passes. Mrs. Hartley is now CEO, effective immediately. Logan stood shakily. Camille, you can't do this. I know you're angry, but destroying me won't. I'm not destroying you, Logan. Her voice was calm, steady, final. I'm just taking back what was always mine. Tess burst into tears. Real tears this time, not the calculated performances Camille had grown used to seeing. This isn't fair. I didn't know. Logan told me you weren't involved in the business. You didn't want to know, Camille replied. You wanted to believe the fairy tale where you could step into a successful life without earning it. As the meeting broke up, Logan approached Camille one last time. 9 years of marriage, and this is how it ends? You taking everything? Camille looked at the man she'd loved, the man she'd built an empire with, the man who'd thrown it all away for a pretty face and a younger body. Logan, You already took everything. I'm just returning the favor. She gathered her documents and walked toward the door, Miranda beside her. As she reached the threshold, she heard Tess's voice behind her, desperate and pleading. Logan, what are we going to do now? Where are we going to live? How are we going to? Camille didn't turn around to see Logan's response. She didn't need to, because for the first time in months, she knew exactly where she was going. Home. To the empire she'd built. To the life she'd earned. To the future that finally belonged to her again. 3 weeks had passed since Camille took control of Hartley Fitness Empire, and the divorce hearing scheduled for today would determine the final terms of their separation. She sat in the courthouse waiting area, 9 months pregnant and radiating the kind of quiet power that made people step aside without being asked. The media attention had been relentless. Pregnant CEO saves company from fraudulent founder. Woman scorned becomes woman empowered. The real Hartley behind Hartley Fitness Empire. Every headline told the same story. Justice served, empire reclaimed, truth victorious. Miranda sat beside her, reviewing final documents. The preliminary numbers are impressive. Membership renewals up 40% since you took over. 6 new vendor partnerships. The Denver location alone has increased revenue by 25%. People want authenticity, Camille said, watching Logan pace nervously across the waiting area with his new legal team, his third since the story broke. They want to support businesses built on real work, not stolen credit. Tess was notably absent. According to Jessica's reports from the gym, she'd fled Denver entirely after her Instagram following dropped from 200K to 30K in 2 weeks. Her influencer empire had crumbled faster than her relationship with Logan. Has he tried to contact you? Miranda asked. Every day. Texts, calls, emails through his lawyers. He keeps saying he wants to work things out for the baby's sake. Camille's hand moved to her belly. But he made his choice when he decided I was replaceable. The courtroom doors opened and they were called inside. Judge Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s with a reputation for no-nonsense rulings, took her seat as the lawyers arranged their materials. Logan sat across the aisle looking haggard and desperate. The confident businessman who'd once commanded every room had been replaced by a man who jumped every time his phone buzzed with another news alert about his downfall. This is a dissolution of marriage hearing for Hartley versus Hartley, Judge Morrison announced. Given the unusual circumstances and media attention surrounding this case, I want to address several key issues directly. She turned to Logan's latest lawyer, a nervous young man who clearly wished he was anywhere else. Counselor, your client has made several claims about the business assets in question. Are you prepared to defend those claims? The lawyer shuffled papers frantically. Your Honor, while we acknowledge that Mrs. Hartley played a supportive role in the business, the company was legally established and operated under Mr. Hartley's name. Supportive role? Judge Morrison's eyebrow arched dangerously. Counselor, have you reviewed the evidence submitted by Mrs. Hartley's legal team? Yes, Your Honor, but the patent registrations listing her as the inventor of the company's primary products, the sworn affidavits from vendors establishing her as the primary business contact, the financial analysis proving her initiatives generated the majority of company profits. The lawyer's face had gone pale. Your Honor, those documents can be interpreted in various ways. They can be interpreted as proof that your client committed fraud, Judge Morrison said sharply, not just against his wife, but against investors, vendors, and the public. She turned to Logan directly. Mr. Hartley, stand up. Logan rose unsteadily, his expensive suit hanging loose on his frame. He'd clearly lost weight during the past month of legal battles and public humiliation. I've reviewed the evidence in this case extensively, Judge Morrison continued. The emails where you claim sole credit for work performed by your wife, the documented attempts to exclude her from business decisions, the systematic erasure of her contributions from official records. Logan's voice came out as a whisper. Your Honor, You never intended to get caught. The judge cut him off. But intention is irrelevant when the damage is this extensive. She consulted her notes. I'm also troubled by the timeline of your affair and your decision to file for divorce while your wife was in her 3rd trimester of pregnancy. The court views abandonment of a pregnant spouse as particularly egregious. Miranda stepped forward. Your Honor, we'd like to present additional evidence that has come to light since our last filing. Proceed. Miranda activated a laptop connected to the courtroom's display system. Text messages between Mr. Hartley and Ms. Alcott recovered from company phones during the document preservation process. The messages filled the screen and several people in the gallery gasped. Logan, Camille's getting suspicious about the late nights. Need to be more careful. Tess, when are you going to tell her about us? I'm tired of hiding like we're doing something wrong. Logan, after the baby's born, don't want to stress her during pregnancy. Could affect my custody rights. Tess, smart. Make sure you document everything that makes her look unstable. My cousin went through a nasty divorce and her ex got everything because he built a better case. Logan, already on it. Got her emotional outbursts on recording. Pregnancy hormones are making her irrational. The courtroom fell silent. Even Logan's lawyer looked shocked by the calculated cruelty revealed in the messages. Judge Morrison's expression had hardened to granite. Mr. Hartley, did you deliberately manipulate your pregnant wife's emotional state while planning to use her reactions against her in custody proceedings? Logan's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Answer the question, the judge demanded. I was protecting my interests. You were psychologically abusing your pregnant wife while planning to steal custody of your child. Judge Morrison's voice could have frozen lava. This court has seen many disturbing cases, Mr. Hartley, but your behavior ranks among the most callous I've encountered. She turned to Camille. Mrs. Hartley, please stand. Camille rose with dignified grace, her hand resting protectively on her belly. This court recognizes you as the primary architect of Hartley Fitness Empire. The evidence clearly establishes that you built the business relationships, developed the products, and managed the operations that created the company's value. Judge Morrison consulted her ruling. Therefore, I'm awarding you 85% ownership of Hartley Fitness Empire, including all patents, trademarks, and intellectual property. Mr. Hartley will retain a 15% non-voting stake. Logan's knees buckled, and he had to grab his lawyer's arm for support. Additionally, the judge continued, you are awarded the marital home and all shared assets. Mr. Hartley will pay child support in the amount of $8,000 per month, and his visitation rights will be supervised until the child reaches school age. Your Honor, Logan's lawyer protested weakly. That seems excessive. What's excessive, Judge Morrison snapped, is a man who steals credit for his wife's work, abandons her while pregnant, and then attempts to manipulate the legal system to steal their child. Mr. Hartley is fortunate this court doesn't have the authority to file criminal charges for fraud. She banged her gavel. This marriage is dissolved. Mrs. Hartley, congratulations on your freedom. Mr. Hartley, I suggest you use your remaining 15% stake to learn what it means to actually earn success instead of stealing it. As the courtroom cleared, Logan approached Camille one final time. His face was streaked with tears, his voice broken. Camille, please. I know I made mistakes, but we had 9 good years. That has to count for something. Camille looked at the man she'd once loved, the man she'd built an empire with, the man who'd thrown it all away for momentary pleasure and ego gratification. You're right, Logan. We did have 9 good years. I just wish you'd remembered that before you decided I was disposable. She turned and walked toward the courthouse exit, Miranda beside her. Behind them, they could hear Logan's sobs echoing in the marble hallway. Outside, reporters waited with cameras and microphones, but Camille walked past them with serene confidence. She had nothing left to prove. The empire was hers. The future was hers. And tomorrow, she would build something even better from the ashes of what Logan had tried to destroy. 6 months after the courthouse victory, Camille stood in the executive office of the newly renamed Empire Fitness by Camille Hartley, holding her 3-month-old daughter, Sophia, while reviewing expansion plans that would have seemed impossible a year ago. The transformation had been nothing short of miraculous. Under her leadership, the company had not only recovered from the scandal, it had thrived beyond anything Logan had ever achieved. Membership had increased 200% across all locations. 3 new franchises were opening this quarter, and Camille's supplement formulations were now licensed to fitness companies nationwide. The Forbes interview is scheduled for next week, Jessica announced from the doorway. Now promoted to Chief Operations Manager, she'd become Camille's right hand in rebuilding the empire. They want to feature you on the cover for their Self-Made Women issue. Camille smiled, adjusting Sophia in her arms. Self-made. I like the sound of that. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, she could see the bustling gym floor below. The space looked completely different now, brighter, more welcoming, with inspiring quotes from real members instead of glossy stock photos. The culture she'd always envisioned had finally been implemented without Logan's interference. Her phone buzzed with a text from David Martinez. Saw the Wall Street Journal article this morning. Empire Fitness posts record quarterly profits under new leadership. Proud to work with the real boss. Coffee next week to discuss the new protein line? The success stories kept coming. Maria Santos had expanded her equipment company specifically to meet Empire Fitness's growing demand. Stephanie, the bookkeeper Tess had fired, was now chief financial officer with a salary triple what Logan had paid her. Every vendor who'd stood by Camille during the transition had seen their businesses grow alongside hers. "Ma'am?" Jessica held up her tablet. "The documentary crew is here for your final interview." Camille. Empire Reclaimed would air next month on Netflix, telling the complete story of how a pregnant woman had taken down her fraudulent husband and reclaimed the business empire he'd tried to steal. The streaming rights alone had generated more revenue than Logan's company had seen in its best year. As the film crew set up their equipment, Camille walked to her desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a photo from their first gym location. Logan cutting the ribbon while she stood in the background, barely visible, holding their business plan and vendor contracts. She'd kept it as a reminder of how invisible she'd allowed herself to become. Never again. "Mrs. Hartley, we're ready for you," the documentary director called. Camille settled into her chair, Sophia sleeping peacefully in her arms. The final questions were ones she'd answered 100 times, but they never lost their power. "What would you say to women who feel invisible in their own lives?" the interviewer asked. "I'd tell them that being underestimated is a superpower," Camille replied. "While others are taking credit for your work, you're learning every detail of how things actually function. When the time comes to prove yourself, you'll have something they never bothered to acquire: competence. Do you have any regrets about how everything unfolded?" Camille looked down at Sophia, whose tiny hand was wrapped around her finger. "I regret that it took so long for me to stand up for myself. I regret that I let someone else define my worth for 9 years. But I don't regret fighting back. This little girl will grow up knowing that her mother built an empire with her own hands." What's next for Empire Fitness? We're launching a mentorship program for women entrepreneurs. Too many brilliant women are building businesses in the shadows while men take credit for their work. We're going to change that. Camille's smile carried the confidence of someone who'd already conquered the impossible. "We're going to build an empire of empowered women who never have to beg for recognition." After the crew packed up, Camille sat alone in her office as evening light streamed through the windows. Sophia had woken up and was gurgling contentedly, her dark eyes, Logan's eyes, looking up at her mother with complete trust. Her phone buzzed with yet another notification. Logan's Instagram account, which she'd stopped blocking months ago, had posted for the first time since the divorce. The image showed him in what looked like a small apartment gym, attempting to train a handful of clients. The caption read, "Starting over. Sometimes life humbles you in ways you never expected. Learning to build something real this time. Second chances. Earned, not given. Humility." The comments were brutal. "Too little, too late, Logan. Should have thought about humility before you cheated on your pregnant wife. Camille is thriving while you're starting over. Karma is beautiful." But there were a few supportive voices, people willing to believe in redemption. Camille felt a flicker of something that might have been pity, but it passed quickly. Logan had made his choices, just as she'd made hers. Her laptop chimed with an email from Miranda, now on retainer as Empire Fitness's general counsel. "Camille, thought you'd want to see this. Tess Alcott filed for bankruptcy in Phoenix last week. Her lifestyle brand venture collapsed after losing all her major sponsors. Some stories write themselves." Camille closed the laptop without responding. She'd stopped following Tess's downward spiral months ago. There was no satisfaction in watching someone else's destruction, only in building something better from the wreckage they'd tried to leave behind. Sophia made a soft sound and Camille lifted her to the window overlooking downtown Denver. The city sparkled in the twilight, full of possibility and promise. "See that, baby girl?" Camille whispered. "That's what persistence looks like. That's what happens when you refuse to let anyone make you smaller than you are." As she spoke, her reflection in the window showed a woman transformed. Gone was the uncertain, apologetic figure who'd tried to make herself invisible to keep peace. In her place stood someone who'd learned that true power came not from taking credit for others' work, but from building something so undeniably valuable that it couldn't be stolen or diminished. Her phone buzzed one final time. A text from her sister Brooke in Seattle. "Saw you on the business news tonight. Empire Fitness CEO plans national expansion. Mom and Dad would be so proud. You've become the woman you were always meant to be." Camille smiled, holding Sophia a little tighter. Outside, the city hummed with the energy of millions of people pursuing their own dreams, fighting their own battles, building their own empires. And tomorrow, she would help them do it. Because the girl who'd once accepted crumbs had become the woman who owned the whole damn bakery. 2 years later, the ballroom of the Denver Convention Center buzzed with excitement as 500 women entrepreneurs gathered for the second annual Empire Builders Summit, hosted by Camille's foundation. On stage, she stood before a backdrop reading, "Build Your Own Empire," while 2-year-old Sophia played quietly in the wings under Jessica's watchful eye. 3 years ago, Camille began, her voice carrying clearly through the packed auditorium, I was invisible in my own life. I had built a multi-million-dollar business, but my name appeared nowhere on the documents. I had negotiated every major contract, but someone else took credit for my work. I had created the products that generated millions in revenue, but I was introduced as just the wife. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. I'm not sharing this story to gain sympathy, she continued. I'm sharing it because somewhere in this room is a woman who's building someone else's dream, while her own talents go unrecognized. Somewhere here is a brilliant entrepreneur who's been told she's just supporting a vision that's actually hers. Applause rippled through the crowd. Empire Fitness is now valued at $150 million. We operate in 47 states. Our mentorship program has helped launch over 200 women-owned businesses. And every single day I walk into an office with my name on the door, leading a company I built with my own hands. The standing ovation was thunderous. After her speech, Camille walked through the networking area, watching women exchange business cards and form partnerships. The foundation had grown beyond her wildest dreams, not just supporting female entrepreneurs, but creating a network of women who lifted each other up instead of competing for scraps. Mama! Sophia ran toward her on chubby toddler legs, her face bright with the unself-conscious joy of a child who'd never known her mother to be anything but powerful. Did you see Mama's speech? Camille asked, scooping her daughter into her arms. Big clap! Sophia giggled, mimicking the applause. As they walked toward the exit, Camille's phone buzzed with a news alert. Logan Hartley's fitness studio chain files for bankruptcy. Former Empire Fitness founder struggles to rebuild after divorce scandal. She glanced at the article briefly. Logan had tried to launch a new business using his remaining 15% stake as collateral, but without her operational expertise and vendor relationships, he'd failed spectacularly. The man who'd once commanded boardrooms was now filing for personal bankruptcy while living in a studio apartment. Camille felt no satisfaction in his downfall, only a quiet gratitude that she'd escaped before he could drag her down with him. Mrs. Hartley, a young woman approached hesitantly. I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you. Your story gave me the courage to leave my business partner who was taking credit for everything I created. I just launched my own company last month. Camille smiled. What kind of business? Sustainable athletic wear. I've been designing the products for 3 years, but my partner kept putting his name on the patents. After hearing your documentary interview, I realized I could file my own patents and start fresh. That's incredible. Are you here looking for investors? Actually, I was hoping to apply for your mentorship program. Camille handed her a business card. Call my office Monday morning. Ask for Jessica. She runs our mentorship division now. Tell her I said to fast-track your application. The young woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. But I do, Camille thought. I know exactly what it means to finally be seen. As they reached the parking garage, Sophia fell asleep in her car seat. Camille drove through Denver's evening traffic, past billboards advertising Empire Fitness locations, past the original gym where her journey had begun. The building looked smaller now, less imposing than it had seemed when she was fighting for scraps of recognition. A new sign read, Empire Fitness Downtown, Esther by Camille Hartley, 2015, with her photo prominently displayed. History rewritten. Truth restored. Her phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. Miranda's voice filled the cabin. Camille, I have news. Harvard Business School wants to add your case study to their curriculum. They're calling it the Hartley Method, reclaiming stolen intellectual property in corporate partnerships. Camille laughed. The Hartley Method. I like that. There's more. 3 major publishing houses are bidding for your book rights. They want you to write a business memoir. What would I call it? How about Empire Reclaimed? How I took back the business my husband tried to steal. Camille considered it as she pulled into her driveway, the same house where Logan had once brought Tess to humiliate her. now fully hers, renovated and transformed into a home where Sophia would grow up knowing her mother's strength. "I have a better title," she said finally. "Built to last, the woman behind the empire." Perfect. After hanging up, Camille sat in the quiet garage for a moment, Sophia sleeping peacefully behind her. Through the open car window, she could hear the sounds of her neighborhood, children playing, dogs barking, the ordinary symphony of people living their lives. 2 years ago, she'd been fighting for survival. Now she was building legacies. Her phone buzzed with a final notification of the day, a LinkedIn message from someone named Jennifer Walsh. "Mrs. Hartley, I saw your speech tonight. I'm currently in a situation very similar to what you described, building a tech company with my husband who's systematically excluding me from decision-making and credit. I don't know how to fight back without destroying everything. Any advice?" Camille smiled and typed her response. "Jennifer, fighting back doesn't destroy what you've built. It reveals who actually built it. Come to my office Tuesday morning. We need to talk." Camille. She gathered Sophia from her car seat and walked toward her front door, past the security cameras and motion sensor lights that had replaced the vulnerable woman who used to live here. Inside, the house was quiet and peaceful. Sophia's toys were scattered across the living room, where Tess had once posed for Instagram photos. The kitchen, where Camille had once cried over ultrasound pictures, now gleamed with the efficiency of a woman who knew exactly who she was and what she deserved. As she put Sophia to bed, Camille whispered the same words she said every night. "You are strong, you are capable, and you will never let anyone make you invisible." Sophia smiled in her sleep, safe in a world where her mother was queen of her own empire. Later, alone in her home office, Camille opened her laptop and began typing the first chapter of her book. "My name is Camille Hartley, and this is the story of how I took back everything that was mine." Outside her window, Denver sparkled with the dreams of millions of people, and somewhere in that glittering expanse, another woman was discovering her own strength, learning to stop accepting crumbs and start demanding the whole bakery. The empire was hers. The future was hers. And the legacy she was building would ensure that no other woman would have to fight this battle alone. Would you have the courage to reclaim what's rightfully yours when everything seems lost? Your participation in our channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like to help me out, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the next stories. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.